And today we have a guest which has never been on the podcast before. He's a good friend of mine, and he is the new Regional Director for the Midlands. His name is Gary Matthews. Welcome, Gary. How are you doing, brother?
You big boss man. All right.
I'm not doing too bad, brother. Not doing too bad. So, first of all, Gary, I'm just going to fire a few personal questions to you, a bit like a Bobby in an interview room. So,
No comment. No comment.
Brilliant. So first of all, can you just share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So as you say, my name's Gary. Talking about Bobbies, I've just drove home then from work, and I got to my house, and the police was sat outside. I was like, "Oh man, they've caught me. They've caught up with me." I was like, "Not now when I'm meant to do this interview with you on this podcast." But yeah, it was outside. Actually, they was outside because my neighbour, he left his wallet in his car overnight, like you do. Somebody got broke into his car, nicked his wallet, shooting around garages there, clicking it off and not getting the petrol. Don't leave wallets in cars, innit?
Yeah.
So I'm my name's Gary. I live in Leamington Spa in Warwickshire, but I've not lived here all the time. Do you want me to tell you where I grew up and stuff like that?
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up. So you're in the northeast, where the sun's always shining. I was across the way a little bit in the northwest, where the sun's never shining. So I grew up in Blackpool. I was born on somewhere called the Grange Park Estate, which is I used to be quite a notorious estate in Blackpool. It's still there actually. I think they've done a lot of renovation there though. I think it's got a little bit better. So I was born there, and I lived there till I was about 5 years old with my mum, my dad. There was 5 of us, 5 kids, and then so my mum was from Blackpool, so I was born there, and then we moved to Manchester when I was about 5 years old, because my dad was from Manchester, so we had like family there, so we moved there. We moved to an estate called Newton Heath, which Newton Heath was about 3 miles away from Manchester city centre. Newton Heath's quite famous actually because Manchester United, they had their first ever football ground there in Newton Heath. We used to live across the road from it. It was about 3 minutes walk up to this old football field. And we used to nick motorbikes and drive them around this field. That was like our field to drive nick motorbikes on. And yeah, so that was so we lived in Newton Heath, big council estate, big mixture of working class and benefit class. So I lived there until I was maybe about 10 years old. So for about 5 years, and then we moved back to Blackpool. And then when we was in Blackpool, we lived on like different estates, different areas in Blackpool until I was around 2006. And then in 2006, I moved to Coventry. And then from Coventry, I've ended up in Leamington Spa.
Brilliant. So what was your life like then growing up on the estate in Blackpool? It was your formative years where you went from a boy to being a man. And so what did life look like for you as a young man?
Yeah, I'm still not sure I've got to that man bit yet. So from my years in Blackpool, I don't really remember much of that. But my years in Manchester, it was rough, man, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? I just remember so my earliest thoughts was just fear. I just remember feeling loads of fear. So we was like a family that moved onto a council estate, and sometimes that's hard to do because like a lot of council estates are very cultural. You got like many families, generationals of families, and like they all grow up together. So we was like a family that just moved into this estate, didn't really know anybody, but we got to know people. And I just remember like most of my growing up, my earliest thoughts was either I seen a lot of violence, a lot of crime. It was a single parent family. Do you know what I mean? My mum and dad split up. So we was kind of like benefit class as well. I never really thought about benefit class. And so we was having a conversation a few weeks ago at the pastor's retreat. So in Manchester, it didn't take me long to be rebellious. Do you know what I mean? I kind of like I was very rebellious, and I started to smoke at a young age, and I started to drink at a young age as well. So I was hanging around with people much older than me. So I was maybe 8, 9, hanging around with people like 14, 15 on the estate. And I had all this thing of fear, and I remember my first drink that I ever had. It took this fear away. I was really poorly off it, but it took this fear away, to be fair. And then after that, I was just like 9 years old. You know what I mean? It was just crazy. And then I used to I got a job actually. I got a job when I was 9, 10 years old on a market in Manchester. So my mum used to take me to school, and I'd run out. She'd put me in one door, and I'd get off out the other door. And there was a market there, all day market, 3 days a week, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. And I used to wag school and go and work on this market stall selling nappies. It was crazy, man. 9 years old, 10 years old, and then I didn't get another job then until I was 27. Do you know what I mean? And I used to go to this market, sell nappies, and then it was just crazy. But yeah, when I was about 10 years old, we moved back to Blackpool, and then we moved in like different areas of Blackpool, different estates and stuff. And my drinking and drug taking just carried on. To be fair, even through my teenage years, I was drinking, I was taking drugs. I was like wagging school, I wasn't doing much school and stuff. And then I was getting in trouble with the police a lot. And because I was so young, though, there wasn't a lot they could do. So I thought like I could get away with everything. Um, and then I started to get like in more trouble with the police, and then I got remanded to like local authority, and I'd get like they'd come and see me, but they couldn't much really they could do. But then they started to like put me in like remand houses in different places, and then when I was about 15, I went to prison for the first time. And then I was like, I remember it was just there for the weekend. It was like I got remanded on the Friday, and I got out on the Monday. And on the Monday they put me in a secure unit. So then I got in this secure unit, and for drinking, for taking drugs, and just being an absolute nightmare in the society. To be fair, do you know what I mean? In the council estates that I was living on. And then I remember when I was like 16, I got 15 months in prison, and I went to prison, and prison wasn't a massive new thing for me because I grew up around people that had been in and out of prison. I grew up around drug addicts, and I grew up around criminals. That was just like my culture. That was just normal to me, to be fair. And then I got to prison when I was 16, and I remember on the way, I was crying my eyes out. I was like, I don't really want to go. I want to go home. And then I got there, and then the first few weeks was really difficult, but then I got into the routine of it, and I felt safe in prison, which is quite sad, to be fair. But I felt safe in prison, and then I got out of prison, and prison didn't change me. It didn't rehabilitate me. It didn't deter me or anything. And I got out of prison, and then I went back in prison, and I got out of prison, and I went back in prison, and then that was my whole lifestyle for many years. Do you know what I mean? With my family as well, with a lot of my friends, and then the areas where I lived, there wasn't so much opportunity there for us. To be fair, there was no gospel. I didn't hear the gospel. I didn't hear about Jesus. I'd been to church when I was in prison just to get out of my prison cell, and then I'd been to I was like I was just like doing some silly things, man. Once I set a church on fire, do you know what I mean? Like all in vain. And I used to nick lead off church roofs, take it to the scrapyard. It was like it was just really stupid. To be fair, I was like my drinking was just really out of control, and I'd be very violent when I was drunk. Without a drink, I'd be like quiet as a mouse. But got a drink in me, and I was like very violent, and I'd be like causing people a lot of pain, a lot of fear. Um, and then a lot of violence, yeah. And then back to myself as well. So I had a few kick-ins as well. I used to like get drunk, and then I'd like to fight when he had a drink, but I'd always get battered. I wouldn't win the fight, so I'd always get battered. Yeah, and then that was just a cycle of life. To be fair, on the estate where I live, like it'd just be drinking, drug taking, sex. That was just the whole lifestyle. Like you just that was all there was to do. To be fair, and then I tried a few times to change. I tried a few times to like stop drinking and move to different areas. Tried to move away to stay with my dad, and I just done it again. I took me with me.
What was the motivation for that? What had you become dissatisfied with the life, with fed up with being in prison, or what do you think was it that stirred in your desire to change and have a different life?
I think it was like sometimes because I just go crazy and I do something really bad, and I was remorseful for what I'd done at that time.
Mm,
Uh, I was sorrowful, but well, it wasn't enough to change me because I'd stopped drinking and I stopped taking just for a few weeks, and then I'd do it again. There was like just something in me that drove me to just do it. I couldn't not do it. Do you know what I mean? And then I tried to I thought I do want to change your life, or I want to change this area and this area in my life, but I don't want to change that area.
mm,
A bit if I could just like drink with all the without all the chaos, without all the madness, then that'd be great. So like instead of drinking vodka, I'd try and drink just lager. And then I go crazy off the lager. And I'm not going to drink lager because I go crazy off that. I'm going to try cider. Do you know what I mean? So I was just like, whatever I tried, I went mad. And same with the drugs. So like the drugs, I wasn't like a heroin addict or a crack addict. I was a drug addict. Whatever drug I could get hold of, I'd take. And yeah, and then I come to a point of just thinking that this is my life. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, I tried to take my life, and like I tried to commit suicide. I don't know if I wanted to kill myself or if it was just like remorseful for stuff that I'd done, and it was a cry out help. Do you know what I mean? But it was just depression. Yeah, it was just mental to be fair. Uh, and I could have died many times. I had drug overdoses. I had some like serious scraps. Yeah, and then to be honest with you, prison saved my life on many occasions. So it'd be going crazy on the out, and then prison. I'd go to prison, and then I'd get all right in prison. Sometimes I'd take drugs in prison, but then I'd get out, and it'd be a little bit calmer. But then it'd build up again, like a little volcano. Do you know what I mean? A few little ripples at the bottom, and then it would just explode. And then in 2006, I I got myself arrested on purpose to go to prison. Um, and then I went to prison. And then when I was in prison, I started to work with a drug worker and an alcohol worker. Not really thinking, oh, what I stopped taking drugs. I don't even know really why I wanted to work with them, but understanding God now and Christianity, I believe that God put them in my path.
mm,
Because I feel like that time of my life, if I would have gone back to my hometown, I'd either now be dead or I would have been lifed off. That's just the way it was going. Do you know what I mean? It was like family feuds, warfares, and all that. It was chaotic to be fair. And I went to prison in 2006, and I started to see this drug worker, and she said, "You want to go to rehab?" And I was like, "I want to go to rehab. I'll go." And then so I had a choice of going to a rehab in Coventry or in Manchester, and I thought I don't want to go to Manchester. Send me to Coventry. And my whole mindset was like, I'm not going to go to rehab. I'm not stopping drinking and stopping taking drugs. That's just my life now. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
When you're in that prison in that cycle, it's just the same people doing the same things over and over again. And I thought that's just my lifestyle now. So I've gone to prison and I've done it, and I've gone to rehab in 2007 in Coventry. And this rehab was, I just thought I'd get to rehab, I'd get a flat, I'd get away from my hometown, and I'll be all right. So I've gone to this rehab, and they've picked me up from prison, and I've gone to this rehab in Coventry, and it's a Christian rehab.
mm,
But 12 step, you have to go to like NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous. And you could go to church. You didn't have to believe in Christianity. You didn't have to go to church. So I've got to this rehab, and so they told me after it when they picked me up, they was thinking, "Oh man, this guy's going to be a nightmare." Do you know what I mean? So they told me later on, this man, how we're going to cope with him. I was a bit crazy, man. And then I've gone to the rehab, and it was the rehab was just crazy. To be fair, most of the guys in there was taking drugs. They was taking drugs, like they were sleeping with the staff. They was like going out. So the night staff was women were sleeping with one of the lads. They'd go out on a Friday night clubbing with the residents. You know what I mean? Like this is a place to like help you try and get sober and clean. It's crazy, isn't it?
yeah.
So I'm in this rehab, and like I'm the only guy there that was not taking any drugs. So I was giving them my weed for the weed test. And I'm the one that they was thinking is going to be the hardest work. I was the easiest one there. So like I've gone through this rehab and I was kind of listening but not listening to him. And I'd done an alpha course and I went to a few church events with him. And like this pastor used to come in, so they had a few Christian workers, and he was telling me about this man, oh, Jesus died for you on the cross, and that Christianity is true, and like your problem isn't addiction, and your problem isn't drinking, your problem's sin. Like you're sinning, you need to repent and turn to Jesus. And I'm like, mate, you're crazy. What you're on about? Do you know what I mean? I was not interested. So I've left this rehab. The rehab closed actually, and then I got a shared house with this guy from the rehab in a council estate in Coventry. And then when I left the rehab, I just went bang on it again. I was just like bang on the drugs again. I started smoking crack cocaine, drinking cans of Tenant Super, back on the vodka, and like taking drugs like Subutex, what's it like people take in prison. It was like crazy. Do you know what I mean? And then but I remembered then, like, my life just spiraled out of control again. And I kind of remember what they said to me in the rehab about this man called Jesus. They said something like that, those that call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So I cried out. I was like, God, Jesus, if you are real, please do something. I'm so sorry. I can't live like this anymore. I can't change me. Nothing happened. I was expecting, like, do you remember the old National Lottery advert? A big hand comes out of the sky and it says, it's you. I think I was expecting something like that, but that didn't happen. But I remember a few days later, I stopped swearing. My language was absolutely disgusting. It was vile. I think every other word was a swear word. And I just stopped swearing. And then something happened within me. And I didn't want to take drugs anymore. And I didn't want to drink anymore. And then he had this desire to go to church. And then I started to like float around different churches in Coventry, but I was just like, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just like, I was in and out of these churches. And then I ended up going to another rehab in Wales. So I went to this rehab in Wales, and there was no NA, there was no AA, it was Christianity. This is Jesus, this is the gospel. And you had like 3 Bible studies a day, and it was great. Do you know what I mean? So it got me into the Bible, it got me into learning how to pray. And then when I was there, like I stopped smoking, come off antidepressants, got baptized, and I started to hear about the gospel and who Jesus was. So I was there for about 13 months, and then I left there, and then I moved to the town what I'm in now, Leamington. But prior to going to this rehab, there was a church in Leamington which used to run a course called the Pathway Program. So that was for like, it's quite a middle class church, but it had a pathway program for trying to work with drug addicts or alcoholics or homeless people or people that have not come from church and they've got issues, to try a pathway through to Christianity. So I tried to apply for it before I went to this rehab, but they wouldn't have me on it because they said I'm too much high risk. But when I left the rehab, they let me on it. So I left the rehab, but I met some Christians from a church before I went to rehab, and I stayed in contact with them. And then they let me move in with them. These Christians, they didn't know me from Adam. Do you know what I mean? They let me go and move in with them. I thought that's crazy, man. So they let me go and move in with them. In my previous life, no one would have me in their house. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, he ain't coming in my house, man. He'd be nicking off us. So I've gone to live with this couple, and then I got a flat in Leamington, and then like I lapsed again. I went back on a crack and that, and I started like spending all my so in rehab. You're in Cottonwood, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like you're comforted, and like the temptation's not there. To be fair, it's been taken away for drinking, drugs, and all that. So I've left the rehab, and I've got a flat and was doing a bit of voluntary work. I've never really had a job apart from when I worked on the market selling nappies. And then I relapsed, and I spent all my rent money on crack and on drink and stuff. And it broke me, to be fair. But the church supported me through it, and then yeah, I just didn't want to do that anymore. And then I started to do voluntary work, and I wanted to get a job. So God had changed me. It says in the Bible, let him that steals steal no longer, but get a job and work with his hands to give to those in need. And then God gave me a desire. He really changed my heart, and he gave me a desire to get a job. And I found it really difficult to get a job because I've got a really long DBS, because of my background, because of my choices that I'd made in life. And then I was really fortunate to get a job. So because I've got a disability. Well, they say it's a disability. I don't know if it is or not, but I'm deaf and I wear hearing aids. So I was working with a disability worker in the job centre, and they said, "Oh, there's this care home that's opening a new mental health nursing home, and they're willing to give people a chance that have got a background, but your background is quite a lengthy background, so I don't know if they'll give you a chance, but you can go along to it if you want." So I've gone along to this course, and it was like a 5-day course, and it was like preparing to work in health and social care. So I spoke to the guy before it, and he was like, "Finish the course, and then we'll have a talk about it. See how you get on." And I done the best on the course. It was really, really good, to be fair. I done the best on the course, and then he ended up getting a job in a mental health nursing home, looking after people with mental health. It's crazy, do you know what I mean? 27 years old, and that was when I was 27. Um, and I got a job as a mental health nursing home, and then I got settled in the church, started to study a little bit. Um, yeah, and then God's just given me a few different jobs since then. I've had some really good jobs, to be fair. Yeah, I was running a cafe for a charity. So the charity in my local area. So I live in a nice area, but it's like there's loads of addiction and all that. So there was a charity there. I was running a cafe for him. So you'd have like homeless people, addicts coming to the cafe. I didn't really have a clue what I was doing myself, to be fair. But I was running this cafe, like teaching them all barista skills and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then I a few other jobs, trusted jobs, man. I ended up like driving a double-decker bus kitted out with computers as a youth worker. That didn't last long. I drove into a low-hanging branch and smashed the top windows. Oh, it was mental, man. But yeah, God's been really good to me. And then I met a lady from Poland. She didn't speak any English. I think that's why we got on so much. Yeah, so I met a lady from Poland, and I've been married 10 years. I've been
Amazing.
married 10 years. It's crazy. So yeah, and then I work for myself now. I work for myself. I look after old people. I look after like people with dementia or Alzheimer's. It's crazy. From the life where I come from, the doors that God's opened, how much He has changed me. I generally love older people. I generally love uh, those that struggle, what society might reject. Do you know what I mean? I had a job for a while working with young adults as well for the church. That was a really good opportunity and experience as well. So yeah, so like in the past, so this is how much God has changed me. Do you know what I mean? So I am. The Bible says that if any man's be in Christ, they are a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. The old me that was a drug addict and an alcoholic, these people that I go and look after now, I would have robbed shamefully. I would have stole off them. Do you know what I mean? But today, I've got keys for people's houses. They give me keys to look after them. They send me to the bank with their bank card and their bank number, their PIN number to get their money out. They trust me today. Do you know what I mean? That's how much God has changed me. That's how much God has transformed me. So yeah, that's kind of like what I'm doing now. And then obviously you've just employed me as well. I was a bit shocked when you offered me the job, to be there. I was like, is this right? But yeah, it's exciting to see what God's going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So just explain a little bit how we came to meet. So I was at your wedding. I had the privilege to preach at your wedding to Anya 10 years ago. I can't believe it was that long ago. But I actually met you in Middlesbrough, not in Coventry or in Leamington Spa. So share a little bit about how you ended up in Middlesbrough and
Yeah, yeah.
how we met.
Yeah, so when I was like started to go to church and stuff, I met a few different people. And then they was like part of an organization. I think it was called like Salt and Light Churches, like a different organization, and they used to do a year-long Bible study. So I was really like passionate for the gospel and really passionate for the Bible. I didn't come from like any teaching, so like I'm not very academic. I wasn't very academic then at the time. And then these people was like, "Why don't you do this year-long Bible course?" Which was in Oxford at the time. So I went to see the guy, and he said, "Oh, we're not doing it anymore, but we do something called the Daniel Challenge in Middlesbrough." And then I was like, "Okay, so let's have a look at that." And then, to be honest though, when I first got saved, so like I grew up on council estates all my life. Yeah, I'm like council estate born and bred. And then when I got saved, I was like, I don't want to be on a council estate. I want to get off a council estate. And then I looked at Middlesbrough and he was like, "Oh man, do I want to go to Middlesbrough? Middlesbrough's full of council estates." But then I was asking God, what should I do? Should I go or not? And he said, "Yeah, go." I felt like he said go. So then like I gave my flat up, gave my work up, done that, and I moved to Middlesbrough to do something called the Daniel Challenge, which is like a year-long discipleship course. Where you do a little bit of theology studying, and you serve different ministries, lots of mercy ministries to be fair. So that was in 2003. So I've moved to Middlesbrough, and that's where I met you. I'm not sure if I met you. So I remember chatting to Graham Seed
Mm.
in the Oakwood church. I'm not sure who actually introduced me to you or introduced you to me. Was it Graham, or did we meet at the Oakwood?
No, we met at South Bank Baptist Church.
Oh, was that what it was?
Yeah, because I think you'd been doing some youth work or sharing your testimony with a guy, and he popped into the church just before we finished doing some youth work, and we just
Okay.
started chatting. And he said you were staying up in Nunthorpe, and I was
Yeah,
running
yeah.
a Bible study. This was just before we planted New Life Church, and remember Big Paul? We were running a Bible
Yeah,
study in
that's
Big
it.
Paul's
Yeah, yeah.
house. Yeah, and then we just started hanging out and uh, going to out for meals. You'd come along to the Bible study and things like that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I tried to get you to stay in Middlesbrough, but you weren't having any of it.
Always ask his one out. It's because like just before I moved to Middlesbrough, I met Anya, my wife.
Yeah,
So like, and then I moved to Middlesbrough. Then like, there I was like, am I going back? Am I not going back? I was a bit confused.
yeah,
But yeah, it's good that we
yeah.
stayed.
I remember actually we went to Stewart's Park. We were walking the dog, and you were chatting about do you go back and what have you, and yeah, you were like talking about how it was serious, and if you go back, do you get married? And yeah, it was poor
And
Anya.
yeah, yeah, I know, mate. I know. And then like you come to preach at my wedding, which is really good. We watched that. We watched a video of it, so it's like been just not long ago, been 10 years. So we watched the video again. Yeah, it was good, man.
It was like the Eurovision Song
It was.
contest. I remember preaching and then you having to translate it for a family back home in Poland. That
Yeah,
was pretty
yeah, yeah,
unique.
yeah. It was pretty cool, man. It was
uh,
really interesting. Like, so there was a girl that got saved on that day.
yeah.
So like
Wow.
yeah, she got saved and she's still going strong now. She's just sent us a wedding invitation. Actually,
Oh, awesome.
she got saved that day. She preaching, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't see anyone get saved in Middlesbrough, just in Leamington. Oh,
Oh,
class.
dude.
Yeah. So yeah, that explains a bit about your upbringing and your faith journey and how we met. But what was it like for the last 10 years then in Leamington, which you say has a lot of addiction and still suffers from deprivation like any other part of the country, but it's
Yeah,
still quite affluent and
very.
all the churches you went to were very middle class. So what was your transition like from a council estate lad to and Christian to a middle class church? How have you found that journey?
Yeah, yeah. So I think initially I was like very lucky to go to the rehab that I went to, because that kind of like transitioned me a little bit.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So like the rehab that I went to, they'd go out to different churches, taking leading the meetings where the lads could like share the testimony and all that kind of stuff. But so it was a little bit of an introduction to church in a sense, but that was just like you're just there on a Sunday and then come back. So I kind of knew a little bit what to expect. And then the church that I ended up going to for quite a while, it was a middle class church, but they tried to reach out to the working class. You had quite a few working class people there.
Hmm.
But there was quite a few culture shocks and a few things that I struggled with at first, to be fair. So just like the dress code, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How people dressed, like, because like, I'm going to church and like a lot of people are dressed up in suits and stuff, ties and suits and stuff. Like I'm rocking up and I've got like tracksuits on, and I've got like my socks tucked into my trousers and a baseball cap just sticking off the top of my head. So I'm a bit like the only people from my culture that wore suits with like CID on my solicitor.
Yeah.
So like that was a bit of a culture shock. And then yeah, and then like some churches have been alright to be fair, but it was like I struggled with the music.
Hmm.
The some of the songs were just like old hymns and like the words not even in English
Yeah.
or like old English. And I love the theology and the songs behind it, but I struggled with that a little bit. I still do, to be fair. Uh, And then I struggled with the terminology, a lot of what they were saying at the front. I just didn't understand it, to be fair. I didn't understand how they were like explaining the Bible with all these big fancy words. And I'm like, wow, man. Or they're like throwing words of Greek out in Hebrew. I'm like, mate, I struggle speaking English, never mind Greek and Hebrew. Do you know what I mean? And then, yeah, I'm like, and what I found difficult as well was people was nice. It was nice, and they was like, "Oh, do you want to come back? Do you want to come around for some food? Do you want to come around for dinner?" I'm like, "Do you want to come around for dinner?" Oh, it was crazy, man. Yeah, but yeah, very different to the culture that I come from.
Yeah,
The only people that ever like invite you around is for a session or something. But
mad. Ah, yeah. So obviously you've come in from a different culture, and for me, I had like it was like two layers of struggles when I became a Christian. There was many of the things that you said, so I felt there was like stumbling blocks from the middle class church. The middle class culture would present stumbling blocks for me, whether that was the dress code or the way people spoke and
yeah,
things like that. But I also brought plenty of stumbling blocks for myself coming
yeah,
from a working class culture. So, what ways did you struggle? Because we've already heard that that middle class church had loved you, people had took you in, let you live in their home. Uh, so there was so much that the church has done to help you and to nurture you and to love you. Uh, but often, I think, as working class people or people who come from a different culture, a bit of a tough, unorthodox background, uh, when we come to church, I think we can provide our own stumbling blocks, can't we? What kind of issues do you think from your past might have hindered your walk with God?
yeah. So I think a lot of it was I didn't trust people,
Mm,
a real lack of trust. So I found it hard to trust the people that were saying, "Yeah, this is real and this is not." Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, and then also, what I struggled with, so like from the past as well, I just need people to be real with me. I just need people to be real with me. Um, not sometimes I just need tough love, not just like, "Oh, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves you." I'm like, Gary, man, you're messing up. Stop it.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I need telling the truth. Um, Other stumbling blocks was just like, especially when I first started going to church and stuff after like leaving the rehab, I was just like, I was really unreliable. I was really unreliable. I wouldn't show up. I wouldn't turn up to meetings. I was lazy. Um, yeah, it was just like I wasn't. I couldn't be trusted to do what I said I was going to do.
mm,
I wasn't reliable. I wasn't reliable. Um, and then I'd hinder myself through my choices, my actions. You know what I mean? So like not taking drugs, not drinking, but I'd sit up all night watching absolute rubbish. I
yeah,
would like stuff myself with like eating rubbish, um, and then I wouldn't do the things that I meant to do. I had no self control. I had no discipline, and then I had to really start to learn all that self
mm,
control and discipline. And I thank God for that. So like, yeah, yeah, it's not been easy. It's not been easy at all. But yeah,
yeah,
God,
yeah. I think that self control for me, coming from an addictive background, you when you get off the drugs, I think you can pat yourself on the back and think, "Oh, I've got a lot of self control, haven't I done well?" But forget that you haven't got any self control at all. You've just switched
one thing to
one
another.
addiction for something else. So for me, it was the same: the food and sitting up all night eating tubs of ice cream, watching junk on TV, and uh, I was still trying to. I wasn't feeding the spirit. My primary
Yeah,
goal when I was sad or angry or often I just seek to feed the flesh rather than feed the spirit, and whether it was just it was unhealthy physically, but unhealthy spiritually. How
yeah,
I would
yeah,
often seek comfort in food, sex. It was how I felt physically and emotionally rather than spiritually.
yeah,
And I think that's a, a real challenge for all of us as Christians. But when you come from destructive backgrounds like ours, I
Yeah.
think it's even harder, that self-control. We from council estates generally live, uh, you live for today mentality. We don't plan for pensions. We don't plan for the kids going to uni. We just plan for
Yeah.
getting wrecked on Saturday night. The furthest we look to is the weekend, I think,
Yeah.
and it's just a whole mind shift that we've got to change culturally and personally and
Yeah.
emotionally. And I think, how do we, so this story where we've seen you've grown, we've seen that a middle class church who didn't have much experience with people from your background, love and nurture, and seen how you've grown and developed. So how do we keep churches encouraged to motivate, uh, to be motivated to work with people from our backgrounds, but also to have the wisdoms when to say you're taking the mick now, enough's enough, and when
Yeah.
to encourage people to say, come on, get yourself up off the ground, dust yourself off, and
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? Because like probably like yourself as well. But I've been to churches as well that I failed, that
Yeah.
I've got it wrong. Do you know what I mean? I've been to like churches where I've walked in and I'm like I've gone there for a while and I've said to Anya, my wife, I'm like, I don't fit in here. So the church that I went to initially, that really supported me. They done it well, but then the church changed, and I think like my understanding of theology and the Bible started to change. Do you know what I mean? So then stuff they was doing that I didn't think was right, to be fair. So I left that church and we went to a different church, and I've been to some other churches that was like really super middle class, and the heart for people was good, but for me, walking into a church that is super middle class, just the way that they spoke and like the way that they dressed and everything, I was just like, I felt so different. I felt like it just didn't fit in. Do you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, so there's been some churches that I've been to that I've just not been, I found not helpful. Uh, and I think working with people from our background, it's hard work. It is hard work, but then the benefit and the treasure of it. Do you know what I mean? Uh, it's like treasure in darkness, isn't it? And how do you know when to stop and when not to stop? It's really difficult. We need a lot of patience, I think, and a lot of wisdom. So I remember, and I've worked with a few lads, and then I was working with some lads in this church that I was going to, and then you get people that come from a working class background into a church or a benefit class and never even not even worked, they're just on benefits and like they take drugs and they drink, or the lifestyle's just a bit chaotic.
Mm.
They come to the church and like they come to the church for a few weeks and then we start to expect perfection from them. They've been in the church for 3 weeks and you want them to stop swearing, you want them to stop drinking, you want them to stop taking drugs, you want them to stop committing crime. And like we do eventually want them to stop doing that if they confess faith in Christ Jesus. Do you know what I mean? But we can expect too much too soon from people, and we start demanding, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that," and then they disappear. We don't see them again because there's like too much pressure on them. Um, but I think churches they need a lot of encouragement about how to, because the gospel don't change. The package is this, the packaging changes. You know what I mean? The gospel's the gospel. We're all sinners. We need a savior, whether we're from working class, middle class, or upper class.
Mhm.
But I think the way that we reach these different classes is going to be different. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
how we relate to and reach out to working class people will be different to middle class people. And then I think we need to be wise of that when we invite them to church or when we reach out to them as well. Because they're not going to get it all straight away. They're not going to understand our church language
Mm.
if we're speaking all a theological language without really explaining what we mean to them. I think we can hinder the progress as well. We can hinder it by how we reach them, what we invite them to, what we do with them. Uh, so I think reaching out to working class people, we need a lot of patience. We need a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding
Mhm.
uh, in doing that. And I think when do we stop? When do we? So I've worked with quite a few guys, quite a few lads. Reach out to them, and like you need to be prepared to be let down. I've been let down by a lot of people,
Mm.
so I've learned to like not to expect too much from people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And to give them more time. And then there's some guys now, so like was like trying to work with him for a long time, and now it's just like, nah, he's just not interested. And then another guy I was working with, so I used to run this event where we'd like share testimonies and would share the gospel, and then we had a Facebook page, and then this lad read it. He was like a tough guy from Coventry in and out of prison, and then it related to my story. So like he started to come to this event, and then I started to meet up with him a little bit, done some shopping for him and all that, which I don't mind doing. But then he just like try and contacted me. I just wanted money, just wanted money, just wanted money. I was like, I just can't do that, mate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was like, I can't keep giving you money. And then he had to like say nah to him. And it's like it's individual as well. So not everybody's going to be the same. So like there might be a line for this person, but a line might be different for somebody else. Or people, working class people's lives are different, and the culture's different. Even within that culture, there's subcultures, and the struggles are very different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like it's on an individual basis that we need to like be working with people.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, even within the same family, that people getting saved of different issues, different desires, different temptations. It's
Yeah,
yeah. There's no one size fits all, is there? I think, like you say, that compassion and wisdom and patience is needed,
yeah,
and decisions need to be made and tailored to a person rather than a
yeah,
particular culture, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's what's good about Medhurst Ministries, isn't it? So like, there's a lot of people out there that want to work and reach out and share the gospel with working class people, with council estates. Uh, I was actually listening to one of your podcasts with Mes McConnell. It was
Right.
really interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So like 20 Schemes does the same, doesn't it? It
Mm,
wants to reach out to working class people. Like some people, some churches don't really know how to do that. How do you reach a culture that you don't know nothing about that culture? So it's good that Meadows can support churches to be able to do that, or to be able to encourage them, to be able to give them wisdom. So for a lot of middle class people or believers go to a working class culture, they're going to find situations that they probably don't know how to handle. Do you
mm,
know what I mean? If they've not come from a background where there's addiction or violence or domestic abuse or all this kind of stuff, and a pastor can be like, "What do I do? How do I cope with this? How do I support these people?" So then it's good that they can come back to Medhurst and ask Medhurst for some support and some help as well in how to do this. People that have got a bit of an insight into that culture because they've lived it.
mm. Yeah, and I think what I loved about the most recent pastors' retreat was there was uh, quite a few. We were still in the minority, but we were a bigger minority than we have been in the past. There was quite a few
Yeah,
working class lads there. There was myself, you, Ricky, Big Sam, and Mez,
yeah, yeah,
and I was just blessed to be around people who were my brothers in Christ, but also people who get me, who understand me, who were very much like me. More and
yeah,
more as we do these events, I no longer feel like the odd one out. I feel like
yeah,
I am
yeah,
part of this church, and hopefully the middle class guys don't either,
yeah,
because there's plenty of middle class guys there, and we'll work together in
yeah,
diversity.
yeah.
But just we've mentioned some of the problems of working class people and the need for patience and compassion. But what would you say, especially after spending time with a couple of working class Christians, uh, are some of the unique cultural blessings that come from working class culture?
Yeah, yeah. So I agree with it as well. So often I say to my wife as well. So like a lot of the people I'm around now is like working class, is middle class people.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? The church I go to is predominantly middle class. The people that I look after in my job are predominantly middle class. I live right on the edge of an estate, which is good, but I need to be around people like me. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
So the working class culture is like they bring a banter, they bring a humor that is different to middle class people. Do you know what I mean? I
mm,
I, I love the banter, the banter, the so like when we take the mickey out of each other.
mm.
So like we're kind of like men's men. So we don't say we love each other. Or I do now. I'm a Christian,
Yeah, yeah,
but uh, in that culture, you just like the more that you rip each other, the more you take the mickey out of each other, the more like I'm saying I love you, man. I respect you, man. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But when I first like started coming to churches, even now today, so when I'm saying it to my wife, she don't get it, and I need to say I'm only kidding.
Yeah.
I'm only kidding. And then even in some of like the churches that we go to, I'm like, I'm having a laugh, I'm having a banter, and they're like, "Is this guy real? Is he telling the truth? Is he not telling the truth?" Yeah. So to be around people like us was great, especially at the pastor's retreat. Do you know
Mm,
what I mean? It kind of felt it makes you feel normal. It makes you feel like you're not so different, you're not so mad, you're
yeah.
not so crazy because they understand. So I think, yeah, I think we can like bring a great humor. I think we bring great honesty as well because we're generally like people that come from a working class background are quite honest. With if you ask somebody like what's going on, what's your issues, they generally tell you. I find that a bit different in working in middle class. Like they don't really tell you what's going on. They don't really tell you the problems, or they don't want to share them. It's like, oh yeah, it's all right.
Mm,
We're working class people. We're honest with where we're at, and I think like we're passionate about what we do as well.
mm,
When something happens good for us, man, when Jesus changes us, we're passionate about telling people. And we might not all be like super like, academic, but we're clever people, man, to just to survive out in the world. Do you
mm,
know what I mean? So yeah, it's good that like to try and bridge that gap of the two. So there was some like really nice pastors that was middle class that lived at the retreat. Do
mm.
you know what I mean? And like they've got a heart for working class people. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think it was good for us to sit and have dialogue. We were up till 2 o'clock in the morning with a couple of guys, weren't we? Just talking
yeah,
about different cultural issues, and I think the more of us from a working class and poor background, who whether it be benefit class or whatever, who are sharing our struggles and our cultural kind of identity and norms. Whereas before, I felt when I'd say things, people just thought, "Oh, that's Ian. That's Ian's
yeah,
opinion." Whereas when you
yeah,
get a broad working class a group of people sharing their cultural norms, it's not just Ian's opinion. This is actually a bigger
yeah,
cultural opinion yeah, insight. I think what I've also found as well is like an intense loyalty from
yeah,
working class uh, people, whether Christians or not, and it's a weird loyalty
yeah,
because I remember like we'd have family feuds and we'd we'd beat the living daylights out of each other. But if somebody hurt one of our own, then
yeah.
you stick
Back them
together,
up.
you
Yeah,
close ranks, don't you? Yeah. And I
yeah,
think that loyalty transfers with the working class Christians who,
yeah, yeah,
because there's so few of us, many of us are spread far and wide across the country. When we come
yeah,
together,
yeah,
I think that's
yeah, yeah.
intensified and deep friendships, I think,
Yeah.
which
I
is
was thinking about that when I was thinking about this. I was thinking like the culture that we come from, man. People are cheating each other all the time.
yeah, yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Your
yeah,
best mate will sleep with your bird, or you'll sleep with your best mate's bird.
yeah, yeah,
If you're in a fight, or they need you to back each other up, you back each other up, man.
yeah, yeah,
You're there for each other. It's crazy.
yeah. Weird, weird. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I think it is. There's a lot of common grace, isn't there, from both the middle class and the work class cultures, and I think sadly, so often when discussing reaching the working class, we often focus on the negatives, the addictions. I remember doing a seminar for some churches in the northeast on how to reach uh, the working class, and I give them some statistics to look over, and then I said, "What outreach do you think you could do to this community?" And they were like, "Oh, we can support single mums, we can support those on the dole, we can do food bank." And what they've done is they focused on the negative statistics and say
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was like 30% single parents. Everything was focused on working with single parents. I was like, what about the 70% that are married
yeah, yeah,
and living in traditional families? How are you going to
yeah,
be reaching them? Yeah, there's 25% unemployed, but what about the 75% that are working? How are you going to, if you do everything during the day for the unemployed, how are you going to reach those
yeah,
overnight? So again, so often when we're focused on reaching a culture, we can uh, again be have our blind spots where, and again, it's coming from a good heart because a lot of people want to help those less fortunate themselves. So having a food bank isn't in and of itself a negative thing,
yeah,
but you're only reaching a tiny proportion of that community. So for me, where we live in Middlesbrough, because the majority of the church's outreach is focused on the poor and the addicts, the general working class guy doesn't think the church
Miss
is for
out.
them.
Yeah,
I'll have
yeah,
people get in touch with me and say, "Can you speak to my mate or my cousin who's an alcoholic or a drug addict or who's in debt?" And I'm like, "Hang on a minute, I don't need to be speaking to them because you need Jesus as much as they do."
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think like that's what I think a lot of people think of when they think of like council estates or working class in it. They think of like
Mm,
drug addicts and
mm,
alcoholics, where pro probably like the higher proportion of those are not drug addicts, they're not alcoholics, they're
mm.
just working class people trying to get by,
Yeah,
trying to live their life in a culture that's like might not have loads of money, but even to be fair, even on some council estates where I live, man, some of them had quite a bit of money. They had good jobs.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? They,
yeah.
they, they had good jobs, but yes, whether they've got a lot of money, they're a drug addict, a drug dealer, they work in a chemist, they all need Jesus because they're lost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think, like you were saying before, I think the more people that are getting saved and speaking up and God's using from our background, from our culture, because like we were saying before, in our culture, not everybody's a drug addict, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? So just people that are just like just grow up on a council estate, just a council estate kid.
mm,
They're just from a council estate. They need Jesus. God still loves them.
yeah,
And then the more of us that are being uh used by God to, I think like you was the podcast that I was listening to you and Mez, you was like sometimes you have had to shout about getting funding as well to work on council estates to work with these point things because funding used to be quite difficult.
mm,
Like you'd have to make it like a big noise, but now like you're getting heard. Do you know what I mean? The
yeah,
council estate people are not getting forgotten, where most people think about maybe working class people or they want to go to areas where it's safe to go to, and they forget about those that are on council estates.
yeah, definitely. So just as we wind up this conversation, share a little bit about uh, what excites you about working for Medhurst Ministries and what you hope to see happen through your role.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that Medhurst Ministries. It kind of like wants to reach people like me. Do you know what I mean? They're forgotten sometimes. Coming from that culture, we can feel forgotten. We can feel neglected. We can feel let down. We can feel rejected. Um, and there's so much treasure there. I've got a passion for working class people, council estate people. So it'd be great to work with Meadows to be able to encourage churches to reach out to these people to see more people like us saved. Uh, to maybe replicate and see what you've done around the northeast. Lots of churches over there getting supported. You know what I mean? It's great to do that in the Midlands. There's some like really rough areas in the Midlands. There's some big council estate areas in the Midlands. So it'll be exciting to see what God's going to do through Medhurst Ministries, and hopefully I can use some of my personal experience from coming from these cultures uh, and stuff that I've learned along the way to be able to see God's kingdom grow through these areas. Do you know what I mean? Because they need to hear the gospel as well, and like a lot of them are often just forgot about. They just forgot about people, and there is some great treasures uh, to be won out there in the darkness. So yeah, it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see.
Awesome. Yeah, it's exciting to have you on board as well, brother.
So
Uh,
man,
yeah, looking forward to work with you. Looking forward to seeing what God does in the Midlands and beyond. And again, we know that there's loads of great work happening throughout the country by churches
yeah,
who are doing stuff on council estates, and we just want to come alongside and share the resources we have, the knowledge we have, and offer any support we can. So if there's anyone listening from the Midlands
yeah,
who would like some support, who's already working in these uh, in the working class areas, whether it be on council estates in the city or rural, we'd love to hear from you. We want to work as a partnership amongst other churches that are already doing a great work. Plus, also, if there's any churches thinking about starting a new work, we'd love to try and walk with you and share our uh, advice and learn from you as well as we
yeah.
expand the work that we're doing with Medhurst Ministries in the Midlands and hopefully across the whole of England. Oh, Gary, it's been wonderful. Uh, I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon about the work
Cheers,
that
mate.
we're doing with Medhurst Ministries. But till then, thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon, brother. God bless.
Cheers, mate. God bless, mate. Bye bye.
Bye bye.